Welcome to TV20's Community Spotlight. I'm your host, Leah Hasledge, and today's Spotlight is on the Legal Aid Society. Joining us today is Catherine Hollingsworth, who is the managing attorney, and Eric Zell, who is a senior attorney, both with the Consumer Practice Group at Legal Aid Society. Welcome.
Thank you.
So first off, tell us about what the Legal Aid Society is and how the Legal Aid Society started and got founded.
Sure. So the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland is a nonprofit law firm, and we focus on trying to give access to justice and solve fundamental problems for low-income individuals in our community, in our service area. And we serve 5 counties in Northeast Ohio: Cuyahoga, Lorain, Lake, Geauga, and Ashtabula. And we've been around for a really long time. We started in 1905. We're the 5th oldest legal services organization in the country. And it started as a volunteer organization with private attorneys in town, and then over the decades it became a full-service law firm with paid employees, and that's where we are now.
And who's eligible to get assistance with Legal Aid Society?
So you do have to be low income to qualify for our services, so there are sort of an intake process where we have to ask questions about people's household income and some other sort of qualifying questions. And then depending on what your legal issue is, we can't serve everyone, we can't meet all of the legal needs for our low-income community. So we do have certain sort of case acceptance guidelines that we follow to determine what kind of cases we're able to help people with.
Now with the cases, I know that there are a lot of options for people. So tell us about what the certain areas of focus are that people can get help with.
Sure. Well, we have various practice groups at the Legal Aid Society. So we are in the consumer law practice group. We also have a family law practice group. We have a housing practice group, and they mostly handle evictions and things of that nature. And we also have sort of a juncture of a practice group called the HUI practice group, which is health, education, work, immigration, and income. And that is sort of a variety of legal issues all wrapped up in that practice group.
Now, I know I'm sure there's a lot of subdivisions to that, but what are just some of the topics that you touch upon to help people?
So we really try to focus our work on life's necessities. So we focus on security issues, income issues, housing issues, and health issues. So for example, in family law, we focus on a lot of helping folks who are victims of domestic violence. That sort of falls under the security focus for our work. In consumer, we do a lot of foreclosure defense work, again, sort of focusing on housing. In our housing group, as Eric mentioned, focuses on landlord-tenant. And then sort of our health area, we help people with public benefits that help to get access to health insurance and to sort of help access that those necessary public benefits like food stamps, so to help people who really are the most vulnerable maintain some stability and health in their life.
And you also deal with like bankruptcy, I believe, and different things with, you said education. Where in education do you find people need assistance?
So we do help folks with children who have special education needs access the education that they are eligible for and have a right to. So that's sort of some of our education work. And we also have areas where we sort of focus on partnerships and try to reach the broader community through partnership. And one area is sort of access to education work. So we partner with different schools and school systems trying to help stabilize students by providing civil legal services to the families of those students. And we also have some partnerships with hospital systems in town where we have attorneys who have offices at the hospital systems and work to help resolve some of the legal issues that patients present with when they go to their doctors.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And then if someone's re-entering the system after spending some time, unfortunately, probably in prison, but there's help for them as well that they may not even realize through legal aid.
Yep. Yeah, we have. So we help different populations of people, have sort of different focuses on different populations, and the reentry population is one of them. And we certainly work with the reentry population on housing issues, on sealing criminal records, on issues with access to work and being able to get gainful employment. So we try to touch on the Rancho population in a number of different practice groups.
Now, it's so wonderful that there's so much variety that you offer to help so many people, but I'm sure there's some things that you are unable to help with. And what would some of those things be?
Some types of cases that we're not able to do. So we don't do any criminal cases. And so that's sort of a blanket. We don't handle any criminal matters. And then again, we do try to focus on these sort of necessities. So even on the even on the civil side of cases, we don't handle things like personal injury cases. We don't handle a lot of different sort of contract disputes. So we really do try, again, because we only have a limited number of attorneys and a limited number of resources, we do try to focus on those sort of real necessities. So there are a lot of cases that may have merit and that may be legitimate cases that we just can't.
Like traffic violations.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Exactly.
Don't
Yep.
apply.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
And then based on our funding, we have certain restrictions on different types of cases we're not able to accept. So for example, we're not able to represent someone who's currently incarcerated in a lawsuit.
Speaking of funding, how is Legal Aid Society funded?
So we have a variety of funding sources. We have pretty diverse funding. So we are funded both federally and by the state. But then we are also pull from a lot of private funding sources. So individual people can donate to legal aid. We have law firms that support us. We have grants from a number of foundations. So we try to have as diverse funding as possible. Never knowing when some of that funding might be reduced. So we do try to access as much different funding as we can.
Yeah. What do you find to be the biggest challenge at Legal Aid Society? What's the biggest challenge you face?
I think the biggest challenge we face at Legal Aid is just an overall lack of resources. Obviously, as a nonprofit organization, like many other organizations around Cleveland, around the state, around the country, there's just a simple lack of resources. So we have thousands and thousands of people who call us every year who, unfortunately, we're not able to help all of them. And as Catherine mentioned, many of these people have legitimate legal issues that deserve attention, but just due to our lack of resources, we're just not able to focus on all of them.
Yeah. Anything else you want to touch upon with that?
No, I mean, that's really our biggest challenge is resources, and again, just having enough funding coming in that we can try to provide as much assistance as we can to the community.
Well, this has been a lot of useful information, but I know there's plenty more to discuss. And when we return, we'll be with Catherine and Eric discussing more about what you can get from the Legal Aid Society. So stay tuned for more Community Spotlight.
Hi, I'm Mayor Frank Jackson. You've probably seen media coverage of the growing opioid epidemic in northeastern Ohio. But what you might not know is how many of these tragedies begin with a seemingly innocent prescription for pain medication. That is why we're teaming with the Cuyahoga County Opiate Marketing Task Force to encourage you to know the risk. Go to the website on your screen to learn which pills are opiates and alternative ways of dealing with pain. Which starts as a prescription can end with addiction, so know the risk.
Queen is just my everything.
His smile did it. His smile, his eyes, his knowledge. My landlord, he decided that he wanted me to move based on the fact that I was transgender. Let's just respect people in everyday life for just being human.
Welcome back to Community Spotlight. I'm your host, Leah Hasledge, and today's Spotlight is on the Legal Aid Society. With us is Catherine Hollingsworth, who's managing editor, and Eric Zell, who is a senior attorney, both with the Consumer Practice Group at the Legal Aid Society. So we were talking about cases earlier, and I know two big legal cases are civil or criminal. So can you kind of tell us the difference between the two of those?
Sure, that's a really good question. I think it's something that gets confused by a lot of people. So there are essentially two different types of cases in the court. There's a criminal case and there's a civil case. So criminal case, by its very name, deals with criminal issues. So these are cases that are investigated by the police and brought by the prosecutor. They are cases dealing with a crime, and there's a defendant who has been charged with a crime. In those situations, that person who has been charged with a crime is entitled under the Constitution to an attorney to represent him or her in that case. On the other side of the coin, there are civil cases. Civil cases do not deal with crimes necessarily. They deal with oftentimes disputes between parties, disagreements, or they deal with a situation where the plaintiff, who is the one who brings the lawsuit, is trying to get the defendant, who's the person who has been sued, to do something, to pay something, to get some sort of relief. Unfortunately, the civil cases differ from a criminal case because in a civil case, you do not have the right to an attorney, and so that's where the Legal Aid Society fits in.
So when you see on TV and the movies people getting read the Miranda rights, right, it has to be totally criminal and not for, disputing your landlord is not going to be one of those situations.
Correct. That is strictly a constitutional right given to criminal defendants. So in a case where there's an eviction, you do not have the right to an attorney in an eviction case.
And it's challenging because, even though there aren't crimes involved in civil cases, there are really important issues that are often involved in a civil case. So someone's housing can be at risk in a civil case. So, for example, a landlord-tenant case, the vast majority of landlords in for example, Cleveland landlord-tenant cases are represented by an attorney. And it's only like 1% of tenants that may have an attorney in Cleveland landlord-tenant cases. So there's a huge divide there between the represented party, the landlord, and the unrepresented party, the tenant. And they can be complex cases. And without an attorney involved, it's hard to know what the court rules are, what you're supposed to be filing with the court. And so we see, these are really important things that are being decided by the court. And when you don't have an attorney, it can make it that much more difficult. And the playing field is not level.
Yeah, not at all. So when someone calls Legal Aid Society, what are the steps? What is the process that someone will go through?
So it differs a little bit how you reach us, but sort of generally speaking, the first step is going to be an intake. That might be with one of our intake specialists if you call us on the phone or you come to our office. If you see us through one of the partnerships that I mentioned, like a medical legal partnership where you're seeing us at a hospital, you might be meeting with an attorney first. But the general approach is that everyone goes through an intake process to make sure you're eligible for our services. So again, we do focus on low-income individuals, so we ask about income and ask some other sort of background questions about some background information for that individual to make sure that they could be represented by us generally. And then the next step is to look and see if that person's issue that they're coming to us with is something that the Legal Aid Society handles.
Because again, not everything can be dealt with by you guys.
Sure. Exactly. And so even if it's not something that Legal Aid would be able to handle sort of on an extended basis, there might be an opportunity even at the intake level to get some information or advice or resources. So we do encourage people, even though we can't meet the needs of so many people in our community, we do still encourage people to call us, because even if you might not sort of qualify for an attorney to help you, you might be able to get either advice or some resources or information, even just by calling our intake department, that will get you sort of one step closer to your goal or on the right path.
And oftentimes we're able to direct people who call or people we meet with in the right direction. So even if we're not able to offer those direct services, at least we can get them in the right direction.
Well, speaking of free advice, you offer a lot of free clinics throughout the community. How often do you offer them? What kind of clinics, and how can people find out about them?
So we offer, like as you said, brief advice clinics many times a month. The schedule differs every week, but oftentimes they occur on Saturday mornings. There are also weekday clinics, either during the workday or after work hours. Those clinics are, for the most part, walk-in, so you come in with a legal question or a legal issue, and there will be an attorney there to sort of give you some guidance, answer some questions at the time, and even if you're not leaving there with a direct representation with an attorney representing you in that matter, at least you're armed with some knowledge to be able to go home and have some information about how to proceed. And we also have clinics, in addition to those walk-in clinics, we have certain clinics that are by appointment only. So we have a criminal record sealing clinic, we have a debt collection clinic, and a divorce clinic, which are by appointment only. So if people are interested in those, you would just call our number or call our hotline and get information about those.
Is there a calendar also available online?
Yes, so online at www.lasclev.org. That's our website, and you can go to the events tab and see all of the upcoming clinics. And as Eric described, some are walk-in and some are by appointment, and that's indicated there. And then our 800 number is the best way to reach us by phone, and that's 888-817-3777. And that would get you to our intake department, or if you just have a question about an upcoming event, that's where you can get that information as well.
Great. So what do you think is the biggest misconception people have of Legal Aid Society?
So one thing we hear regularly when we talk about our organization is people are surprised by our size and our reach. So we have over 40 attorneys, full-time staff attorneys, and about the same number of support staff. And we work with 2,000 to 3,000 volunteer attorneys who are in private practice in other places but take cases from us where they don't charge for their services for that case. So we are able to reach a large number of people and have a broader reach than I think people expect. And I think sometimes people don't know about our service area, which is, like I said, the 5 counties. So we are sizable, and we have a big impact. So.
And you're always looking for volunteers as well, correct?
We are,
Absolutely.
yep. We take attorney volunteers who take individual cases. We have a number of folks who are attorneys who are actually in-house volunteers, and they come to our office and work in our office with us. And we have folks who volunteer for us who are not attorneys, who might help with sort of reception duties and helping with some support staff. So we welcome volunteers and to get to, like I said, to reach as many people as we can. We need folks to help us do that.
Is there anything else that you think the viewers should know about Legal Aid Society and understanding the civil justice system? We touched on it before, but the divide really between represented and unrepresented parties in the civil justice system is huge. So sort of nationally, over 80% of civil cases, you have unrepresented parties. And where you have a situation like a landlord-tenant case where you have one party, the landlord that's represented, and the tenant that's not, it really does tilt those scales of justice. And so we work hard to try to even that playing field and even those scales of justice by providing the civil legal representation where we can. So. Anything else from you, Eric?
I think Catherine obviously said it very well, but with respect to specifically the civil legal system, I think it's very important for people to know that you can't just ignore a lawsuit. If there is a lawsuit that's filed against you, it's very important to either try to contact an attorney, contact legal aid, but just don't ignore it, because there will only be problems if you ignore that.
What would be the number one consequence from ignoring a lawsuit?
So there's something in court called a default judgment, and a default judgment is essentially an entry by the court. If you don't appear in response to a complaint, the court will just enter the judgment against you. So you've defaulted, you haven't entered an appearance, you haven't appeared in the case. So court will enter a default judgment against you, which has the same effect as if you had gone through a trial and had a judgment entered against you.
So it's like you're basically saying you're guilty.
Yeah, and what we find, a lot of folks come to us when we mentioned bankruptcy assistance earlier. A lot of people come to us because they're being garnished because they have a court judgment against them and their income is being garnished from their paychecks. And it's not unusual for us to see that they didn't even participate in that lawsuit that was filed against them, where there's a judgment now. They got this default judgment, and then that plaintiff who brought the case is able just to garnish their wages. So it's an excellent point that Eric made, that ignoring it doesn't make it go away. And if you don't do anything else, bring your court papers to a brief advice clinic. We'll take a look, and we can at least give some quick advice.
Well, how can people find Legal Aid Society? Where are you located, and website, social info?
Sure. So we our headquarters are in downtown Cleveland on West 6th Street, 1223 West 6th Street, which is near the Lakeside and West 6th Street corner. We have 3 other offices in our other counties. Our best sort of point of entry for information is our website, which is www.lasclev.org. Or, like I said, call our 1-800 number, 888-817-3777. You can always get information about us there.
Great. Well, Eric and Catherine, thank you so much for being here. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers definitely did today, too. And so thank you again for being here.
Thanks
and
for having us.
Thank you so much for tuning into Community Spotlight. Of course, for more information, go to tv20cleveland.com. We'll have all the information there as well. Thanks for watching. See you soon.